Hello. I'm Melissa Biscardi, and I'm super excited to give a quick Coles Notes overview of a poster that was presented at the last ACRM conference. The abstract was just published, and there's been a lot of interest in the poster. So here I'll give you the quick rundown. A related publication will be coming out soon, and I'll be sure to share that. So the study early oculomotor and vestibular impairments as predictors of concussion recovery was done in a naturalistic cohort. We know that visual and vestibular disturbances are really common after concussion. Depending on the research study, it might be reported as 60%, as high as 85%, definitely over 50%. And this can manifest as blurry vision, balance issues, dizziness, light sensitivity, and so on. In terms of observable findings, they may manifest as disrupted saccades, pursuits, vestibular ocular reflex, optokinetic reflex disturbances, gaze stability being disturbed. And previous research suggests that females tend to experience this more than males, but most of the research has been done on adolescents and young adults in the context of sports-related concussion. Less is known about the rest of the community. So the primary objectives of this study reported in this poster was to look at just that. Are early oculomotor and vestibular disturbances predictive of 4-week recovery in male and female community-dwelling adults with diverse mechanisms of injury? And we wanted to look at the presence of sex differences. So we conducted an observational cohort study. Participants were recruited between 2023 and 2024 over the course of a year, and all participants were referred from emergency room departments. They met the criteria of mild traumatic brain injury, but every participant had negative neuroimaging findings, so they met the criteria of concussion. Participants were assessed within a week of injury, and they completed a large assessment with health history, demographics, symptom burden as reported on the SCAT, and also the vestibular ocular motor screen to assess symptoms on provocation. And then we reassessed them 4 weeks later to see if they met the criteria for recovery. That was determined a priori and based on criteria used by the Macintosh Sports Clinic. And so what did we find? First, if we look at participant characteristics, we had 122 participants, more females than males. There were 79 females. And this is from my PhD work, and that trend of more females than males, it was a thread woven throughout all of my studies. The mean age was 35 and a half, which is not in the same age range as adolescents and young adults. Most were employed and most had greater than high school education, which is in line with most previous research on who likes to participate in research. The mean time since injury was 4.5 days, so we really did get a snapshot of early post-injury symptoms. Over 60% had a loss of consciousness at the time of injury, and 40% had a history of at least one other concussion. The mechanisms of injury varied from falls to sports-related concussion, injuries around the house, pedestrian injuries, and so on. And then what did we find when we dug into the data? Well, males and females did have different trends in reporting. Males reported more dizziness, whereas females reported more light sensitivity. In terms of a positive BOMS on provocation, it's actually a surprising finding that males were more likely to have a positive BOMS, and that is in contrast to previous research. When we wanted to consider, okay, does a history of migraine, anxiety, depression influence the findings? We conducted multiple logistic regression And we had interesting findings there as well. We actually did not find sex differences. We did not find sex differences for symptoms impacting 4-week recovery, and when it came to a positive VOMS impacting 4-week recovery, it wasn't significant. I would say it was trending, but that is not statistically accurate to say. And so while participants were definitely experiencing visual and vestibular symptoms, at least in our sample and this analysis, we did not find that those symptoms within a week were predicting their 4-week recovery. And I think this is really important because we can assume that studies reporting on young adults on sports-related concussion generalized to the rest of the population. But this study is not without its limitations. This should be replicated in a larger cohort, as most studies will say, and other analysis could be done. We chose a specific variable set, and this is what we found. Although participants were considered recovered or non-recovered at 4 weeks, we could not see if this, or we didn't analyze if it made a difference at 6 weeks, for example. And in addition, we did not get information about what happened between 1 and 4 weeks. So it is definitely possible that those symptoms predicted how well they were doing at 3 weeks, or if they were recovered at 2 weeks. So there are always different ways that you can analyze and look at the data based on what you're interested in. And of course, always matters who actually participated in the study. So definitely keep an eye out for the journal article that is coming out, because it is a slightly different sample that we included in that study, and there are interesting findings there. So stay tuned.